You might be asking, why do I feel broke even though I'm good at what I do? And I felt that way for a long time too. And the short answer is because you don't have the right deals in place. So this is the fundamental gap that exists between the middle class and the wealthy. And that is how skills are applied. So you've gone and you've built up your resume and you've developed all these skills, but you view that as, okay, now I can take those skills and I can get a job and I can get paid well for that job. Or I can take those skills and I can go do contract work and help people with the skills that I have. And that essentially makes you like a servicepreneur, right? Which is just an entrepreneur that does service work. But when you look at those same skills from a rich person's perspective, the application of it doesn't look the same. So instead of using those skills to be applied for a job, the rich person is looking at, how do I apply these skills to gain leverage? And that is the key distinction, is you still feel broke because you don't have leverage. And leverage is the key to unlocking the empire. So the difference between what you're looking at and leverage, the difference between a job or like an income and leverage, is that leverage is essentially voting power. Leverage is the ability to influence and move deals into your favor. So you'll still generate income from leverage. So you'll still get what you're aiming for anyway, but then you'll get even more. So let me bring this down to earth so I can make it make sense. So let's walk through a few different types of leverage and let's see how you can like graduate through these. So the first type of leverage is a job. This is what everybody's looking for. This is what the world has conditioned you to look for, which is a job. So you get these skills, and possessing these skills gives you the ability to get a higher paying job. And so you can always like level up your income through jobs by increasing your skill set. It's the reason why skilled professionals get paid more than people who are doing entry level jobs that don't require skill, like flipping burgers, like packing groceries. And so that in and of itself, gaining skills, is leverage. The problem is most people think that's where it stops, and it's not where it stops. It's actually just the beginning. The next level of leverage using your skills is to go into business for yourself. You have more leverage there because you create the conditions that the business operates in. You create the rules. You decide the price. These are things that you don't usually have control of when you're working at somebody else's company, unless they literally made the role for you to control those things because they don't want to, which is extremely rare. So now you've gone from somebody else is paying me a salary for my skills because it's valuable to their company to, hey, now I'm using my skills in multiple companies. I have multiple companies paying me. That's the only difference between a job and like using your skills in business. And then most people think, okay, I've broken through the job level of leverage. Here's now my resting spot. This is where I have all my leverage because now I'm servicing multiple companies. And they think that is all the leverage that you can have. And that is how they will get rich. And some people do, but there's nuance to it that if you don't understand will keep your income here when it could be here. You dig what I'm saying? If we go a step further than that, instead of taking your company to service other companies, you gain leverage by having your company service other companies that you own. And business ownership is really complicated for a lot of people since there are a lot of ways to own a business and there are different levels of business ownership. But in the world of business, this concept of using a company that you own to service other companies that you own is called vertical integration. And all that means is that you're collecting more of the profit on the table because you have more ownership involved in your ecosystem. So for example, I'm wearing this hat. Somebody had to design this hat, somebody had to manufacture this hat, and somebody had to retail this hat to sell it, right? And market it. So there are 4 legs on that: the design, the manufacturing, the marketing, and the point of sale. A lot of people will just try to own one of these. So they'll own the design firm for hats, or they'll own the retail, right? Or they'll own the marketing company, or they'll own the manufacturing plant. But what happens is if you own the design firm that services the manufacturing plant, that pushes the product into retail locations, that your marketing company promotes so that more traffic arrives there, then now you've collected the profit of all 4 businesses involved as opposed to just one. So how does this apply to you as someone who has a particular set of skills that is used to improve a business? What you do is you say, look, if I have clients, I then now have to have some level of ownership or participation in the upside of my clients. And this is essentially what the world of publishing is. So if you look at the music industry, they're big in publishing. So the example that I aspire to in terms of financial success and like the story of it, aside from like how it all broke down, is Scooter Braun and Justin Bieber. Scooter Braun finds this young talented kid on YouTube, sees a vision for how big his career can be, helps him achieve that vision, and in turn gets a percentage of the upside, which is how, while Justin Bieber made hundreds of millions of dollars, so did Scooter Braun. Okay. And this is the game of publishing. The same thing happens with your favorite books, Harry Potter, 50 Shades of Grey, whatever you're into, these authors have publishers. The publisher publishes the author, which essentially means they use their unique set of skills to get the author more sales. And the publisher also has an ownership stake in the sales that they are creating. Does that make sense? So essentially, when you're in a service business, you have two main profit streams: the profits of your client and the profits that you get from your clients paying you. If you add an ownership stake into your clients, then now you're massively multiplying how much you can earn through your skill set. This is where it gets exciting. When I found this out, it blew my mind, and then it started to fill my pockets. So again, fundamentally, the main reason why you're probably not rich yet is because you don't have enough ownership stake in like the total pool of profit that is being generated by your hands. You have this much, you need this much so that you can start collecting more cash flow. And so my answer to that for people like you and I who have a skill set that directly affects the bottom line is like tie that skill set to a profit share. That's the simplest way I can put it. Tie the skill set to a profit share. And if you're more advanced, then figure out the game of intellectual property and have ownership stake in the intellectual property or the systems that funnel the intellectual property so that you can have like a much bigger run. You know what I mean? And if you don't know what I mean, this is what I mean. If you go ahead and you purchase the intellectual property, right? Or you create or co-create intellectual property, then that gives you the right to distribute that intellectual property. Not automatically, I'm not a lawyer, don't quote me, but like high level thoughts here. Everything will be dictated by your actual agreements at the end of the day, but this is the goal we're aspiring to. If I publish someone who helps people learn how to start a career in tech, if I help them create the products, or if I create the products and just use them as the brand face, then I can own those intellectual property of those products, which means that while they are my client and we are sharing in the profits, if that partnership ever were to dissolve, I still own intellectual property that I can continue to monetize in the absence of that partnership. Does that make sense? So they can walk away from it, but your income doesn't have to stop. And that is one of the biggest problems that we have in the world of servicepreneurs is your clients leave. It's inevitable. All clients leave at some point. It's simply a part of the game. But the problem is not that clients leave, but that when clients leave, that is a loss of income for you. Whether you are working like a regular servicepreneur and getting paid a retainer or per hour or by project, and then that client stops doing work with you, then whatever income you could typically expect from that, gone. Even if you upgrade to a profit share level, then like whatever income you could expect from that is gone. It's more income, so it's still an upgrade, but it's gone. When you get to the level of like owning the intellectual property, then when a client leaves, your income doesn't have to be gone. You can still keep that going because you have designed ownership into the mix. So I say this one last time for this video, and then we're closing this out. The reason you're not rich yet is because of how you're applying your skills. This is where it's time for you to develop a new skill called deal making, aka what are you trading for your involvement? What are you trading for your skill set? And if you do it like everybody else is doing it, you're just going to be just as broke as everybody else. But if you look at the people who are quiet that are doing it, they're making a ton of money. And I'm not talking about your favorite internet entrepreneurs that are making millions of dollars. Oh, I made $5 million last year. Oh, blah, blah, blah. Even me, I haven't even reached a fraction of how big this can get once you get into the better sides of publishing deals. If you look at Sony and Interscope and Activision Blizzard and all these other companies that are using publishing or publishing principles, you'll find that they're doing billions with a big B in revenue and profit, maybe even just hundreds of millions in profit doing these types of deals, and they're quiet. So I'll leave that with you.